We have some breaking news now. CNN has learned new information about that ongoing investigation into those allegations raised in a collection of memos created by a former British intelligence agent at the time he made the memos for political opponents of then-candidate Donald Trump. Jim Sciutto and Evan Perez have been working the story. And Jim, let's start with you. What precisely have investigators learned?
Well, Jake, for the first time, U.S. investigators say that they have corroborated some of the communications detailed in a 35-page dossier compiled by a former British intelligence agent. CNN was first to report last month that then-President-elect Donald Trump and President Barack Obama were briefed on the existence of the memos prior to the inauguration. Until now, U.S. officials have said that none of the content or allegations have been verified. But now, multiple current and former U.S. law enforcement and intelligence officials tell CNN that intelligence intercepts of foreign nationals confirmed that some of the conversations described in the dossier took place between the same individuals on the same days and from the same locations as detailed in the dossier. We should be clear that CNN has not confirmed the content of the calls or whether any of the content relates to then-candidate Trump. And none of the newly learned information relates, I should say, to the salacious allegations in the dossier. The corroboration, based on intercepted communications, has given U.S. intelligence and law enforcement, quote, greater confidence in the credibility of some aspects of the dossier as they continue to actively investigate its contents, these sources say. Reached for comment this afternoon, White House spokesman Sean Spicer said, quote, we continue to be disgusted by CNN's fake news reporting. Spokesman for the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence had no comment.
Fake news is what they call any news they don't like. Let me go to you, Evan. What is it precisely that investigators have corroborated here?
Well, Jake, the dossier contains 35 pages of claims and allegations. And when U.S. investigators first started looking into it, they were trying to see whether there was any truth to the allegation that Russians were seeking to compromise President Trump. Now, to start, the investigators looked for information they could verify easily to give them a sense of the credibility of the author, who was already known, someone they were familiar with as having credible sources. The dossier details about a dozen conversations between senior Russian officials and other Russian individuals, so that was one of the starting points. One thing that the U.S. has is a collection of foreign call intercepts, so that they have information to seek to verify some of the alleged conversations described in the dossier. Now, sources would not confirm which specific conversations were intercepted or the content of those discussions due to the classified nature of U.S. intelligence collection programs. U.S. intelligence officials emphasize that the conversations they have now verified were solely between foreign nationals, including those in or tied to the Russian government, intercepted during routine intelligence gathering. But some of those individuals involved in the intercepted communications were known to the U.S. intelligence community as, quote, heavily involved in collecting information damaging to Hillary Clinton and helpful to Donald Trump. Sources would not confirm which specific conversations were intercepted or the content of those discussions due to the classified nature of those programs. Jake?
Okay, and Jim, let's underline this. The sources that you two spoke with say there's confirmation of some of the conversations detailed. All the conversations were between foreign individuals, and there's still a ton in these series of memos, in this so-called dossier, that investigators cannot yet verify as true.
That's exactly right. We want to be very clear about that. To begin, as we said, one of the officials we spoke to stressed to CNN that they have not corroborated, quote, the more salacious things alleged in the dossier. And I'll remind our viewers that CNN from the beginning has not reported any of the salacious allegations included in the dossier. However, when we first reported this story, U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials have said they could not verify any parts of the dossier. They are now saying they indeed corroborated some of the communications contained in the dossier. None of the officials we spoke to for this story would comment or confirm that they have proof of any alleged conversations or meetings between Russian officials and U.S. citizens, including associates of then-candidate Trump. Officials who spoke to CNN for this story caution they have not reached any final judgment on whether the Russian government has any compromising information about the president. President Trump and his staff, you may remember, have repeatedly dismissed the entire dossier as, quote, phony.
Well, first they denied that he'd been briefed on it, and of course, he had been briefed on it, the existence of the dossier. Evan, you reached out to the White House to get a comment. They said the comment that Jim read earlier, fake news, blah, blah, blah. But the White House has reached out again?
Right. We did hear again from Sean Spicer, and he called us back to emphasize his displeasure with this story. He said, quote, "It is about time that CNN focused on the success the president has had, bringing back jobs, protecting the nation, and strengthening relationships with Japan and other nations. The president won the election because of his vision and message for the nation." Jake.
All right. Well, we did just report on his meeting with Prime Minister Abe, and in terms of jobs, it's a bit early yet, but okay. Jim, this is a story that we're going to continue to work. Obviously, with intelligence gathering, there are a lot of falsehoods. There are some things that turn out to be truth, some things we're not able to determine.
That's exactly right. As we emphasized here, this is not a final judgment, but that they have confirmed at least some of the details contained in those files.